All right. JP there?
Yes, I am. What's going on, man?
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How you feeling, man?
Feeling good. Another playoffs without the Raiders in it. So I know we talked yesterday a lot about your two favorite teams are doing really well this year. So I know it's going to be a potential heartbreaking decision when it comes to the Super Bowl, but at least you have teams in the playoffs. I'm happy for you. Welcome, everybody. First off, I want to say thank you to Jess Irish for filling in a couple weeks back. She did a great job with Subi and Bud. We are almost 2 years into this leadership masterclass, which I can't even understand how it, we started in April of 2021, and we've had we used to do it weekly, but now we're doing it twice a month, and the speakers and the topics have just been incredible. And I'm just grateful to be able to, learn from the people that get to talk to us and impact us. And it's been a great experience. And we're going to keep this going. We love the fact that, twice a month, you guys can log in the morning or wherever you are across the country and hear from a great example in our business, people who are in leadership, not too long ago, whether it's a couple years or a few months. You're hearing from the best of the best people, and the subject matter is relevant to what they're currently doing, what's working for them, right? So we're not picking random things. We're picking things that these specific owners are doing that's helping their business, and it all leads back to leadership. So we're really excited. In a couple of weeks, you're going to hear from Crystal Bell, who's on AW. She's going to go over student mentality and how that applies. 2 weeks after that, you're going to hear from Lamine, Mr. 5G, talking about opportunity. So some really great speakers coming up. And guys, we've had our regional conferences just start. We did one in Atlanta, or Lamine ran it, which heard it was, one of the best conferences that people have ever been to. The mix of interviews and speakers and topics is working out well. And we're going to have the rest of the conferences coming up here in the month of January and February. So really looking forward to being at those. But today, guys, you're going to get to hear from JP. JP is going to be covering team building. And, JP, you're a person that has had success in ownership. You were one of our first speakers on this call, if you think back to when we did it. But there's a lot that's happened to your business over the last couple of years, and really over the last 6 months. And we've talked a lot about recruiting, whether it's prelims or second interviews. And today we're going to talk about the retention side of that, right? And how you've been able to really improve your retention and then the quality of the people that you've retained. So really, to give a recap to the people, 6 months ago, what was going on in your business, and then what's going on today?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so it's crazy because the first time I actually got to run, had the opportunity to run this call, was when my office was in a position doing 130, 140 apps a week. We put out 4 promotions, felt like I was on top of the world. And then I kind of spread myself too thin to the point where I had to ultimately rebuild my entire office from the ground up. And that was definitely a challenge because it was 4.5 years in. I thought I had some success, and that getting out of that little hump of rebuilding that kind of core was something that took me quite a few months. And for me, as an experienced manager that's been in this business for a while and struggling with that, like, it really kind of resonated. It was like, I can't imagine somebody else that's a new manager having to go through that, and kind of I wanted to really break down the specifics and the details and what it takes to be able to get through that, and even some of the mistakes that I made that made it to the point where it took 4 months, 5 months, 6 months for me to do it. And it didn't just like, all right, cool, I rebuilt in a month and here's how to do it, guys. Like, no, like, I get this business, I understand it, I believe in everything about it. And it still took me a while because I was making mistakes. And I was evidently 4 years into this industry. So, but now obviously we're at a stage and, we have 45, 50 guys in the building, 2 promotions. And, I feel like I have a way better understanding on how to lead and develop a team. And I know it's going to only strengthen the guys that we put out moving forward as well.
So you guys hear, JP's got, 45, 50 guys in his building. His office is #1 in FiOS, doing close to 300 apps a week. Am I right there, or is it 200? I'm sorry.
With Gideon, we're around like 240, 250.
240, 250, which
Bud was #1 last week. I got to give him some recognition.
I'm so sorry, but don't kill me. Please don't kill me, bud. But we're talking about, you compare those numbers to 5G, that's doing like 400 apps a week. So he's at the top of the tracker. He's got promotions going out. He oversees 6 offices, but 6 months ago, his office was whittling down. Your crew was only doing what, 40 apps a week 6 months ago?
Yeah.
If that, right? So he was towards the bottom of the tracker, and now he's at the top of the tracker. And it's you got to look at that and say, what happened, right? So today he's going to talk about team building people, building around the right people. And leaders on the call, really understand, your job is not to build one team. Because you're going to, build teams and you're going to make mistakes, is to get good at the process of building teams and to identify what not to do just as much as what to do, so you can get it done faster. So JP is going to tell his story today through these slides of what he's doing right now, but also what he learned from what he did wrong, and building through the wrong people, not having the right standards, and how to look at the law of averages of building people, because some of us get so discouraged when we lose a team, or we build a team, we get back down to 1 guy or 2 guys, but really there's a lot to learn from that, and rebuilding is the most important part. So JP, let's get started. And anybody on the call, please message your leaders, one little thing, one nugget could make a difference in someone getting promoted a month faster. And that's really what we do this call for. So let's get going.
Sounds good. And what you touched on, I think, is one of the biggest things, where if you think you're going to go through this program, you're going to build one team and that's going to build your entire organization and you're going to be set up for like, that's not accurate. Yourself, we probably built 30, 40 teams throughout this process. And 25 of those teams maybe weren't effective because of the leadership that I brought to the table, or the mistakes that I made, or building with the wrong people. So I'm going to kind of break this down in detail and kind of go through that. But the reason I put this first and just being the example is because it all starts with you. It all starts with what you bring to the table. And, the biggest thing is, are you the leader that you would want to follow? Are you doing the things that, whereas like when you look in the mirror every single day, it's like, I'm doing everything it takes, to the point where I can develop other people and people are going to look to me on a regular basis. And I put just in little like checkpoints, just some of the things that I look for and that I coach my guys on. And, again, if you're lacking one of these things, it could be the reason as to why you struggle, building and developing a team, and I think it all starts with accountability. That's why this program is the way that it is. It's why somebody starts off in the beginning stages, goes throughout the process, goes through the field, obviously goes through rejection, challenges. It's because the best leader will never tell somebody to do something that they are not willing to do themselves. And that's where the accountability comes into play. So that integrated with standards, like you have to have high standards for your team. You can't have, you have 5 leaders in your team that average on FIOs 4 sales a week and expect to build a strong foundational team moving forward. It's not going to happen, so, but it all starts with your accountability of like, all right, I've done 6 to 10 sales in a week. So I could preach that as the standard of the team on a regular basis, because that's what I'm doing every single week. So now my guys are going to follow in that footstep, rather than being like, all right, guys, your standard's 12. I only did 3 last week, but the standard's going to be 12 for this team, and you have no way of being able to hold somebody accountable to those standards. So that's where I look at as two of probably the most important things moving forward. But it transitions into consistency. I think consistency with work ethic goes somewhat similar hand in hand. Whereas I'm looking at like my leaders need to be reliable, and that goes into play with consistency. I need to know that they're going to be in every single day. They're on time. They're working hard in the field on a regular basis. They're not taking long breaks. Like they understand the influence of their work ethic on a regular basis, and knowing that that is probably the most simplistic side of duplication within this industry. Is when you have the work ethic there, you can teach that to anybody. However, if you're cutting corners, the person you're training, you give them an inch, they're going to take them off. I just had this conversation 10 minutes ago with one of the guys. If you take a 20-minute break, 30-minute break to go to the bathroom in the field, or go get a drink or whatever it is, the guy that you're training that then runs car rides later on down the line is going to take a 45-minute break. And then the guy he trains is going to take an hour break. And that's where, the problems start to widen, and it ends up, ultimately holding back your team, so to speak, as well. So things start to fester. But that's with the consistency, the work ethic. For you as a leader, you got to be self-motivated. That is when people come into this industry, that's what they're attracted to. They see somebody with drive. They see somebody that's passionate, that's excited. Like, imagine I got on this call and was just like reading off the slides for 45 minutes. No enthusiasm, no excitement, not something I believed in. Like, I didn't have anything it was contributing to. Like, it'd be hard for people to be able to get behind that and be excited about the stuff that I'm talking about when I'm not even excited myself. And excitement is brought to the table by motivation and drive that somebody has. So you got to have things as to why you're doing this, why you're working so hard on a regular basis, and what your goals are. Not saying somebody needs to be motivated by your goals, but they're motivated that you're extremely motivated on a regular basis. And that's something that fires somebody up, because people want to be around somebody that's excited and energetic and enthusiastic, and makes their life and what they're doing and coming into work so much more enjoyable on a regular basis. And then the 2 next sides, student mentality. I mean, that is, I don't think I need to go into too much in that. It's more so just like, if you're not a good student, I can't expect my guys to be a good student. And that was probably my biggest flaw, though, is like the sales came somewhat naturally to me. I was consistent. I worked hard. But at the same time, I thought that was why I was going to be a good leader. When in reality, once I got to leadership, I stopped networking. I stopped asking questions. Like, I figured this out. I'll be able to build a team relatively quickly. And that was not the case. And my guys were terrible, students in general, because I set a horrible precedent on asking questions. I'm like, no, we know what we're doing. We know what we need to do. And it ended up festering my first team, and I ended up losing my whole crew 3 months in. That was pretty much 5 leaders doing 60 apps a week, was almost about to hit qualifications. And I lost my team because of that. And that was my fault. And then the last one, that I look at is mental toughness. All that really comes down to is how you perceive and how you look at challenges every single day. When I tell my guys, it's like, you that person, when push comes to shove, you get hit with an adversity or a challenging situation, does your mind immediately look towards a solution, or does it look towards, all right, let me complain about the problem? And I'm not saying there's something wrong with that person if they veer towards the, let me justify or complain about the problem, but it means that their mentality is not thoroughly developed enough to the point where they're going to be able to actually be an asset for other people. Mindset, mentality, all that's contagious, and you need to make sure that, you're the person, whereas, if you're in a challenging situation, you're automatically veering towards solutions, because when push comes to shove and your guys went into a situation, they come to you. And if you're okay with justifications and you allow your guys to make excuses and justifications, you lower the standards, and it's going to lead to your team not being able to develop and grow faster because of it. So your mental toughness and fortitude as a leader is one of the most important things, and something that people are going to follow every step of the way.
Yeah. Well, I look at this list here, right? Accountability, standards, consistency, work ethic, self-motivation, mental toughness, student mentality, right? You're talking about how to build a strong team, you've got to be the source of these qualities that you would want in other people. But let's go back. When you look at these qualities, what were you missing, JP? Let's go back 6 months ago. If you look at those, what were the ones where you were falling short? Is there one in particular? Is there two where you say, Van, I really lost my standards, or I lost my work ethic? Maybe you weren't working as hard? Because most people on this call are going to be, a lot of you guys are sharp people, and we talk about corner cutting. We talk about taking shortcuts. We talk about how we see what we can get away with and how long we can get away with it until it punishes us to the point where we know we can't anymore. What were the things that you were trying to get away with that ended up punishing you and you had to fix?
You ever heard the saying, old habits die hard? Student mentality. So I was in a situation, and I put out promotions. I had growth. So I'm like, all right, I know how to do this. I can do it over again. And like, pride comes into play, and the ego kind of takes over. Like, all right, I know what I'm doing. I'll figure it out for myself. And then it was like 3 months came by and I still didn't figure it out. I'm like, but I'll be able to get through it. Like, and it's just, you have so many resources available, and you're just like, I was wasting my own energy when I could have been utilizing other people to help me do it, with me or for me moving forward. So I think student mentality for sure. And the one I didn't put on there that I felt like could certainly be inclusive in this is communication. Whereas like, people think communicating is just talking to people, but it's your consistency with reaching out to people, how fast you're responding to text messages. Are you responding to emails, all these things. And those are things that I didn't do very well. And I think that played hand in hand with student mentality. That was a reason as to why I kind of hit like a little plateau, and was just like, I couldn't get past 30, 40 apps a week. And, I also was just like, I'm going to try to do it myself. So I think the biggest thing for me was student mentality. I've always been a pretty self-motivated person. Maybe I did lose my visions a little bit of what I was kind of working towards, because I was kind of spinning my wheels. But again, asking questions and networking with people that had been in my situation before and had to rebuild helped me get through it faster. And took me 5 months to realize I had to do that.
So your ego got in the way, your pride got in the way, and the student mentality part of how we get better, you thought you knew enough. You weren't. So when you say student mentality, were you not getting on calls? Were you not reaching out to owners? Were you not traveling? And what did you do different from a student mentality standpoint from before?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't travel to offices. Like, if I was on calls because they were available, and I was like, it would take up time for the morning for the guys, rather than doing it to take notes and learning from it, and actually taking away something from it. I was doing it more so just for the action rather than the actual knowledge and educational side of what I could learn from it. So it's kind of almost like going through the motions of it, rather than, utilizing it to actually improve and get better.
Yeah. So you're hearing guys from JP, who's, an owner who his office went down to a very small amount of people. And he looks at it and says, right when it happened, right? We talk about urgency to fix problems. And when you're talking about team building, it's kind of like anything. If you got an injury, you got to go to the doctor right away. You got to go get help. And, when his office was injured, or maybe he was injured in his own head, instead of going to the doctor, he tried to fix his own wound. And it took him way longer to fix the problem because he wasn't reaching out and asking for help. And the difference in our business versus, going to a doctor had to go to medical school and do all this stuff. You can just copy a doctor really quickly. You can go to their office, you can see what they're doing, doing right, and then apply it to yourself and fix your problem very quickly, right? So the student mentality part of anything is really important, but you're hearing that the reason why JP's office was small for as long as it was because he wasn't being a student, and he fixed that, right? He realized it. He started traveling to offices, getting on calls, and as leaders, you guys can do the same thing. Don't be content or satisfied or just okay with a situation that's not changing for the better. You guys got to be going crazy. If you're not building people every week, building people every month, if your situation's been the same for even 2 weeks, you got to be freaking out about it and driving people nuts. And that's what it takes to really change what's going on for yourself. So I love that JP focused on that. So, okay, let's get to the next slide.
Awesome. It's funny. And it's, I think the one thing that kind of changed for me was even that conference we had in California, Van, whereas that was where things were on the up and up a little bit for me. But I remember talking to Matt Kelly and just getting it was the first time that I really engaged in a true conversation that I felt like I got better from that conversation. We were talking about how to, prepare promotions and make what his mindset would be if he went to a new market. And I'll never forget that conversation because that was one of the first times in a while where I'm like, dude, I learned something significant in this conversation. I hadn't had that feeling before, but it was because I initiated, I had the convo, and I wouldn't have done that before. So sorry, but that was just on the
it's all good.
note of what you said. But the next aspect is building a team culture. Once you're the image and you're the leader that you're confident, you're in every day, you work hard, you're motivated. And, obviously now your job is to build a culture that is inclusive of everybody that they feel like they can learn from and that they want to be a part of on a regular basis. And one of the biggest things, it starts with getting the right people on the team. The challenge that people have when they first get into leadership is they do an interview and they're just like, this is a whole topic for another day, but they do an interview and they're just like, they're trying to convince a person to do this business because they want the person on their team and they just want to build their team, and they're doing it for the wrong reasons, rather than qualifying and disqualifying people. And, again, I'm not saying that, you have to have a degree from Harvard to do this business. That's not accurate. No, but you need to, if you're working with somebody, you're going to build a foundation in your team. They got to have the similar tangibles of what you had coming in: work ethic, communications, confidence, somebody that's self-motivated, driven, not somebody just coming in looking for, a job, going through the motions. That give them homework, they don't study it. You're going to waste your time and your energy when you could be allocating that on somebody else to be able to, build a foundation of your team moving forward. So, and I'm not saying you can't develop people, but they got to show you the tangibles right off the bat. They're missing days, coming in late every single day. They can't get the pitch down 3 days in. You got to make sure you're on top of that stuff. And, you don't want to try to fit a square peg into a round hole, and waste your time when you could be allocating that to somebody else. So that's where it starts with just getting the right people on the team. But realistically, now once you get, say, 1 or 2 people and you're starting to build a team now at that point, this is where your culture and your team is really going to start, because everybody on your team comes into this business. They understand the growth. They see it. They go through the interview process, but they don't know how to get there. They don't know entirely what their whole life is figured out, their whole goals, everything. Your job is to identify individuals' goals and educate them on how this business and how you as a leader can help them get there. That's where people struggle, because they don't do that. They're very fixated on their own goals and their growing and their team and their production and their sales. And they don't spend the time to have the conversations and invest in their guys overall. And that's where in the beginning stages, your goal is to identify what they're looking for, what their career goals are, and then ultimately provide solutions on how this business and how you as a leader can help them get there moving forward. You do that with each and every one of your people. They see how much you care about them. I promise you, not many companies somebody's going to go to where this guy's going to sit down and they're going to try to identify their goals and provide resources right off the bat to be able to help them get there 2 days into a new company. And I'll be transparent. That's kind of the reason why I got into this industry, just because of the relationship and the genuine rapport that I built with my manager. That was the reason, is to, ultimately retain me in the beginning. And I'm like, this guy runs this business and cares more about how he can help me get to my goals than, how much money I can make his business. And that right there, I was like, dude, this is cool. And I just never had that feeling. It felt like sports for me. And then ultimately from there, you have those individual goals set up with your guys. Now you got to establish a collective goal as a team that you guys are all collectively working towards. Because if everyone's got their own individual goals, that's great. But if it's like all that doesn't contribute to something like an umbrella over top for that collective unit as a team, then, you guys, it's kind of like everybody's doing their own thing. You want everything, everybody is working towards a similar goal. But if we get to that goal as a team, it helps everybody get to their individual goals moving forward. So kind of everybody's got skin in the game, so to speak. So, and the reason why I think this is important is because kind of what you said, Van, about 7 months ago when I had we had 15 people in the office, which obviously is not ideal, but some people look, that's not a terrible size office. Everybody was there for a job. Everybody was coming in, going through the motions. And, I didn't spend the time. I didn't take the time out of my day to have the one-on-one conversations and find out what motivated these guys, what got them to tick, why they were in this industry. And it led to people coming in late, going through the motions of it. They came in to just go to the field, just to do sales. And that was my fault because I didn't take the invested interest into learning everything about my guys from the beginning stages. I wasn't doing the breakfast. I wasn't doing the dinners. And then I was surprised why 15 people did 6 apps in a day and their best days was 10, and it was because of me not being heavily engaged into it. And I'm supposed to be a leader and a mentor and a manager, but I was more of a boss at that point than any sort of attractive leadership figure that people wanted to learn from. So that's what I'll look at, just from identifying goals and establishing a collective goal of which you guys are working towards. Once we've rebuilt, and obviously it started with obviously one of our managers, Gideon, and we built that culture of just like, dude, every day we're contributing something. And within 4 months, we're gonna be at 70 apps a week, and within 6 months, we're gonna have 2-3 promotions. That's what we're working towards. So we set that in stone of what our culture and our environment is going to be contributing to every single day. Now you look at it 6 months later on down the line, we have obviously 3 people that are, 3-4 people that are pushing towards assistant management, but it's because we envisioned it. We talked it into existence every single day. So he had his individual goals of what he was working towards. And obviously I put pressure on myself to make sure I was helping him get there. But then ultimately as a collective team and a unit, it was something that we were all on the same page about every single day. And it just opens up that kind of communication and that transparency, whereas we are about growth, and that's what we're going to be contributing to on a regular basis. So that's on establishing the culture from a foundational standpoint. And the next side of things is, as you kind of create that culture somewhat, you're going to be more and more excited to come in on a regular basis. That crew I had 7 months ago, I didn't wake up excited. Yes, obviously I understand this business. I enjoy contributing to something on a regular basis. I like being in, I like, everything about the industry, but I wasn't excited to work with my guys. I wasn't excited to run impacts. I wasn't excited to have the combos and seeing who was going to show up today, stuff like that. That wasn't motivating for me. And I know my guys weren't. The guys that were here weren't motivated. But now at this stage, there's not a day that I wake up where I'm not where I wake up, I'm like, oh, I got to go into work. No, I'm ready to go because we got goals moving forward, and I know I got to help my guys get there. And my guys, ultimately they're excited to come in, which leads to guys naturally coming in earlier. It leads to guys staying later at nighttime to have conversations, talking bigger picture, talking about goals. And again, you got a lot of managers and leaders can look at this. Your Saturday retention goes up, team night participation goes up, because all of it's natural. I'm not forcing people to come to team night. I'm not forcing people to come in on set. No, they know what it's contributing to, and they see the value of it because of obviously everything that we contributed overall to a team. So that natural excitement, I think, is the most important part. The second you feel like you got to force energy and you got to almost inject it into the office every day, walking in, screaming at people like that, wasn't exciting for me. I didn't want to have to do that. Rather than coming in at early, and my guys already being excited to be in every day because they can shadow, take on more responsibility. Those are the things that excited me every single day. That makes it feel like it's not work. It feels like it's development, and we're contributing to something on a regular basis. So if that makes sense.
Well, I got a lot of notes. So when we talk about building a team culture, it's kind of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg. When you say, do you build a team, then the culture builds with it, or do you try to establish the culture and then the team comes with it? But one thing everyone has to understand, what JP's talking about, is that there's a law of averages to building a team, the same way there's the law of averages to going in the field. When we go to the field, we're looking for 10% of customers, 5-10%. It's kind of like that when we're building teams. So we're looking for that top 5 to 10%. But you don't know who that is, and you really don't even know once you hire someone, because when someone first comes in, even though we talked to them in an interview, we did a second round, and they're filling out paperwork, that person still may be on the fence. And there's people that start skeptically because of many reasons. They're like, I don't know yet. It's kind of like people getting into a relationship. They don't know yet. They're gonna date a little bit. They're gonna see how it goes. So JP's talking about the qualities you look for in a person, and he's so right. But I want the business, and I want my experience I give people to allow a person's qualities to sort of pop up because they're excited, right? I can't expect someone that I just met to already be excited about everything just because that's who they are, when they may not trust or know or be excited enough about this industry to give me their best self. So as a leader, I have to provide a culture. And if I'm a leader, I have to provide an experience for a person when they come in where right away they feel important. Right away, I'm connecting them with people that have a similar background. Even if I know deep down they might not do it, I have to give them the best experience possible because it just dramatically increases the odds. I think too many leaders get used to that and they prejudge people. They say, oh, this person, they don't seem self-motivated. Or you know what, they got an employee background. They're never going to do this. They make decisions on people before they give that person the greatest experience possible. And so when we talk about how do you find that 10%? Well, your job is not to try to look for that before you give them the experience. Give them the experience, get to know them. JP talked about how before he wasn't getting to know people. He wasn't doing the dinners. He wasn't understanding what's important to people. And you can't manage people if you don't understand them. Right. And so JP, you weren't doing that. People were clocking in, clocking out because they didn't know you. You didn't know them. There wasn't that conversation piece. They weren't connected to people in a personal way. And it just felt like a job to people. So people started treating it like a job, where if you're a leader, you're not looking at it that way. You're looking at it like, wow, I've got this person in front of me. After a couple of days, you should know everything about them. You should know their favorite color. You should know their favorite food. You should know their favorite music. You should know what their parents do. And they should know a lot about you. And when you get that chemistry by just getting to know people and not force feeding the business down their throat, not telling them, oh my God, this opportunity. Too many leaders, and JP, you probably know this, they're just too pushing aggressive about the business. It's like, shut up. Don't talk about the business. Just get to know people and let the business sort of indifferently sell itself. And you're going to learn, right? Someone will show you in that first week whether they really got bad habits and you got to get rid of them, or they go, holy crap, there's something to this. And that culture is really what you need to have in place by just the experience a new person gets and just making people feel important. Just, if I met JP, it'd be like, wow, JP, you grew up in Dubai, you played soccer. What else about you? That's so impressive. That's great. It's not about me, it's about him, right? So JP, when you look at your office, you say you're excited to work with people and they're excited to work with you, but it's got to be because you know these people so much better than you used to, and they know you better.
100%. And again, a lot of what you said, it comes down to the educational side of things rather than selling. Whereas again, it starts from the field. The people that are best at identifying problems or identifying a certain situation and educating on the solution or whatever it is, rather than trying to just not even listening to the problem or finding out anything about the customer, just trying to shove it down somebody's throat. Those aren't the best guys in the business. The guys that are best at providing a solution. And it's no different once somebody gets into a leadership position. And that was the biggest thing that changed was, I just took more of an invested interest in my guys and learning about them and, their career trajectories and where they see themselves, what attracted them to this in the beginning, any questions that they had. Like, I never did that in the beginning. It just came in and just hoped that the field played its part and people get developed. And, people were excited about growth because I went over the management training program one time and now they think they can get to management. And that's never going to happen without the clear directions and understanding of, obviously how I'm going to be able to help them get there. So I think all of that's spot on, but a lot of it was in the mornings, conversation, staying at nighttime. I look at PM setups as something that's extremely valuable. I'm able to be here until 10 o'clock sometimes. I don't even know what time it is because I'm just picking guys' brains of where they would want to open up, what's excited them, what questions or what challenges they have when they first started, what, like you said, what hesitations do they have about the industry? It enables me to play offense with that and attack that right off the bat, rather than just kind of letting it go and then hope that everything just irons out perfectly because of the field and the environment. That's not going to happen. It's solutions are provided because you make it happen, not because you just go throughout the process.
Yeah, you got to coach people through their goals, and it's a big tell. It's and not through your goals. And you see leaders all the time. They look at people like numbers. Okay, you're on my team, good, and they don't think about what they're thinking. They don't put themselves in their shoes. As leaders, you should know so much about your people in a very short period of time, and then use that information to get them with other people that have a similar background. Zoom is an incredible tool. It's just some people use it better than others. And if you're a person that's not confident in Zoom, or for some reason you're not a networker, become one. Think of Zoom as a tool to build your team faster, to get people with other similar background people from other offices as soon as possible. Don't wait too long. Do it right away to get people feeling comfortable with you, with the business, where they see past just you as their leader. And it really makes a difference. So anyways, we don't want to go too long because we got more slides, but guys, just don't be so focused on just having a team. Get to know your people, figure them out, network them with other people, have this relationship with them where it's not like, buddy, but you really get to know your people. It makes a massive difference.
Yeah. You kind of transitioned this perfectly into the next slide, man. So at least if we can go to the next one. Yeah. So focusing on the process, not the results. What you just said, man, was spot on. It's like people look at it. I need this many people on my team. And then they treat every single person like a number. And that's a huge challenge because then all they're focused on is numbers and the results and the sales and all that. When in reality, your job as a leader is to assist people and basically assist in the development of other people. Not to get them to be the best at sales, not to get them just to be on your team so you get promoted and they're just there. Like your job is to assist and contribute to their growth and development as a person and as a professional. That is your job as a leader. And until you truly understand that and you genuinely enjoy seeing people's growth and development and contributing to their growth every single day, you're going to struggle in leadership and developing certain types of people. So ultimately your sales and the leaders, all that stuff will be a result of the process. If all you're fixated on is I need 5 leaders, 60 sales per week, then you miss out. So much gets kind of like lost, within the crevices of the details, the foundations, the conversations, their goals, and actually truly developing people because all you're fixated and focused on is the numbers. And the analogy I always use to my guys, I use basketball and just like a little sports analogy. So like think about it, you're like in a game, you're like, I got to make 10 3-pointers today, and that's all your fixation is. You go into it, you're launching up half-court shots on 1 foot, like just putting them up from anywhere, and you're not getting high percentage looks, and you're gonna make one of them rather than going into the game like, all right, cool, my focus is gonna be, let's get 10 good open shots today. By what? Good pick and rolls, get whatever it comes down to. I know not everyone's a basketball fan, but quality looks rather than cool. Let me just launch up and try to make this focusing on the result. Focus on the process before besides the actual just numbers. And it's the same reason why in the field we talk about focus on the systems, get your 25, 35 talkers. You do that, the skill sets will follow. We'll teach you that every single day. And it's the same thing, focus on developing people and helping them identify their goals and how you're going to be able to help get them there and teach them the foundations of the work ethic of the field. And what's going to end up happening? The person's going to be more motivated. They know what they're contributing to every single day. And they're going to find eliminated at zero just based off of work ethic. And then the skill set sides are going to come. And then crazy enough, after 3 weeks, the person's on 8 apps getting promoted into leadership, not because you just shoved sales down their throat and forced them to become the greatest salesperson, but because you identified their goals and they felt like somebody genuinely cared about them so relatively new at a company. Now they're motivated and now they can see this business aligning to their goals and how you've been able to help them get there in a 2 to 3 week time frame. So, and then what do you know? You do that with 4 people and you take a step back after 5 months, you got 5, 6, 7 people on the team and you got 4 leaders and you're almost out of system management. Rather than every day, like I need 1 more leader, I need 1 more, they need to do this many sales, like, we need 2 more sales for me to get promoted. That doesn't motivate people, so focus on the process, the results will take care of itself. So, but the next side of things is the investment. You invest into your guys, they will invest in theirs. And what I mean by that is kind of that pay it forward mentality, whereas like if your guys know that you care about them, it's like that saying, like people don't care how much you know unless they know how much you genuinely care. A lot of that is going to be an investment that you have. And for sure, you could say money in some aspect, like first day, as a leader, you bring out a new guy to the field. Yeah, take care of their lunch for the day. It's $10. Like, that, I think that's an easy side of things, but the money is not the most important side. Time is the most valuable investment. The time that I take out of my day to spend with a conversation with a new guy or girl, or at the end of the day in PM app mode, 20 minutes out of my day, I do that, say 4 days a week, 5 days a week with a new person. Think about the accumulation of that 30-minute conversation over a 2, 3, 4, 5 month time frame. That changes the entire mentality and mindset of that person and has enabled me to be able to educate about this industry and getting them to their goals and how I can help them throughout the process. Like that is the most valuable thing anybody can do for you. Like even for me at this stage and talking to you, Van and Ken and Larry, like the time that they invest in you in the conversations is what helps me get better every single day. It's not the money or whatever it comes down to, so always understanding that your time is the most valuable aspect for you to be able to invest every single day. And if you don't look at it like that, it's because you're just going through the motions throughout the process and expecting results when in reality, this industry is not going to provide that if you're just trying to, wait things out and expecting growth throughout the process. So that's what I look at in terms of the investment side of things. You do that for your guys, they will do it for theirs. Yeah. So And the last thing is kind of what we talked about one of my biggest struggles was putting pride aside and utilizing others to do the work for you. There's some people you can't relate to. You just don't have the background or the personality or whatever it is, and it's not a problem. Utilize other people to be able to do the work for you. So if somebody, obviously did you grow up in California, Ben?
I did, yeah, Northern California.
Okay. So grew up in California or whatever it was, it was a bartender beforehand. I didn't do that. I've never been a bartender. I've been to California 3 times in my life. Like, probably going to put them in contact with you because I can't resonate or relate with the situations of what they've gone through and how to be able to go throughout this company with the precedent experiences that they have. Using other people in this industry to be able to ultimately do that heavy lifting for you rather than you trying to do everything yourself. Because they might resonate with them, a little bit more. And, it might change the way that they look at a certain situation, the way that you maybe weren't able to do so. And again, I could look at all of these, Van, and I was 7 months ago poured all of it. Whereas I didn't invest the time in the guys. I was, 8:45 guys did 7-ups because we had to do 7-ups. I was out of here. I was like looking at the clock, like waiting to get out. I didn't want to have the conversations. Like, I didn't want to spend the time. I was like, I just want to go home. Like, and it was a negative perspective for me to have as a leader of this office because guys came back and they did 7-ups because it was part of what we do rather than seeing the value of what it was contributing to. And then even the sales side, I was like, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. It was like, I just wanted people to be in. I didn't care what time they came in. I didn't care, if they were late, whatever it was. I just wanted them in so they would go to the field and hopefully that person would do a sale today. And I'm like, oh, we did 9 today. Oh, thank goodness. That's better. It looks better than 7. Thank goodness this guy came in rather than the person that did 2 showed up 45 minutes late and just went to the field and got praised for doing 2 for the day. When in reality, they're actually somewhat a negative because now people think that's okay. When in all retrospect, they were negative because they came in late. They didn't see the value of being in an Atmo on time. They didn't see what that contributed to. And now other people think it's okay because at least they did 2 sales for that, and they focus on the result and not the process of how to be able to get there. So all of these were things that I struggle with, which is, why I wanted to kind of go over that. And it's something that we focus on heavily, within our office now at this point too, Ben.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, they put the wrong person in front of the room. Even leaders, when they're building their teams, they're valuing the wrong type of person and they're valuing a salesperson, right? So we have a lot of offices that are being built through people that are the top salesperson, but they're not necessarily the best leader. And so many of our great owners were not the best in the field when they started, but they had other qualities about them that made them phenomenal leaders or could make them phenomenal leaders. And unfortunately, a lot of those people get buried behind, someone being paraded around in front of the room because they got the most sales yesterday. But when you're really building a team, you can't just look at that. When you look at someone who's doing a lot of sales, your job is to look at what's wrong with them, not just the fact that they're doing good sales. You looking at the results saying, that's my best person. You got to focus on what the process of building a person and their leadership qualities, their habits, the way they carry themselves, because you can teach someone how to sell when they're the right person, unless they really don't have self-confidence. But people who have self-confidence, they can pick up the sales. So I really got to pay attention to who am I building around and what type of conversations am I having? Or am I so focused on the result where I ignore the process of what someone's becoming, right? My top guy, he's great at sales. I love this guy because he's a leader. We're going to get promoted together. But this guy shows up late, like 3 days a week. But I ignore it because I go, but he's my best guy. If I lose him, I have to rebuild. Yeah. That's terrible. Because not only are you really building through the wrong person, you're not coaching that person, but now that person is being paraded in front of the room and they're not the right example. So you're going to attract other people like that, and you're going to turn off the people who could really be great leaders. And so a lot of the times you got to send that guy home. You got to focus on the process and not be so attached to the day's sales or be so attached to the day's attendance of who you want on your team that day. And it's hard. It's easy to say, it's hard to do. But the best offices are offices ran by leaders who really look at a person and don't just parade them or promote their situation because they're the best salesperson. They look at all the other qualities about them and they prioritize those. And obviously that person's got to sell, right? So it's just important that you guys don't get too drunk on someone who's just doing good at sales and you ignore the other problems they have, because those people can kill an office. They can kill an office, and they currently are killing some offices right now because they're the person being shown in front of the room. This is the best person in the office. Everybody knows that person's full of shit. but nobody says anything because the leader of the office is telling everyone that's the best person. So don't be so drunk on the results.
It's kind of like I think of like just Antonio Brown is my first thing that kind of came to mind when we were talking about that. There's a reason why Antonio Brown doesn't have a job right now in the NFL. Guy's extremely talented, has all the abilities, can produce on the field, but is a negative to the culture and the environment of any team and any locker room that he goes into because people are unsure of how he's going to be able to react, and the tangibles, the foundations aren't there. So just wanted to throw that in too. But we can go to the next slide. There we go. So next aspect of it is going to go into more of how to build those relationships. And the mindset that you want to have is like you are building business partners. You're not building buddies. You're not here to boss people around. You are building business partners. And it's kind of like a little recipe science that goes into that to make sure that you have the right balance between that. But ultimately, the relationship starts off from the first interview that you do with this person. And that's ultimately how somebody's going to be retained throughout this process. I put this on it because everybody should know the reasons why people are retained in this industry. First 3 days, because they genuinely enjoy the relationships, they enjoy the people, they enjoy being around people in that office every day. First 3 weeks, because they start to see that there's opportunity, there's money, they see that the field is doable, they can see themselves actually hitting short-term goals, within early stages of this program. And then obviously first 3 months is because they actually see the growth available within themselves, and they've seen people grow, in their eyes in this office that they've been a part of as well. But the mindset that you need to have is you build relationships expecting absolutely nothing in return. I'm not building a relationship just so this guy can be a leader on my team. I'm not forcing this relationship so that my team can do more sales and I can get to my goals. I build relationships because I want to learn about this person. And you feel like you can learn something from ultimately almost anybody, from somebody day one or somebody that's been in this business for 5, 10, 15 years. You build a relationship just because you genuinely enjoy it and you want to learn more about this specific person in general. And the process on how to do that is you want a 50-50 balance, guys. You want that personal relationship with that individual that you built from the ground up. That's going to be ultimately that person enjoys seeing you. They come into the office and they're looking for you. They're excited to be around you. They're comfortable being around you. They feel like they can, ultimately open up to you about any challenges or express any concerns, whatever it is, because they ultimately relate to you as a person. They have, maybe somewhat of a similar background. You guys have found some sort of aspect to relate on in some way or another, but they feel comfortable coming to you. They feel open having conversations with you, like joke around about hobbies or whatever it comes down to. However, at the same time, there's that fine line where that professionalism really comes into play. They feel comfortable with you, but they're not bringing up old stories from college or talking about, Friday night or whatever it came down to. Like there needs to be that kind of fine line in there as well, where they have that professional respect for you as a person. And that is the hardest part for people to instill, because it's easy to build a personal relationship, especially if somebody goes to the field. Like you learn how to you build rapport with anybody. Like most people on this call, we probably talk to everybody they see. So the personal relationship's easy, it's convenient, it's comfortable to do. The professional relationship of instilling that foundational line in that sand, whereas the respect is instilled, that's the challenge that somebody has. This professionalism and the respect that's instilled enables you to have harder conversations with people and hold people accountable later on down the line and to effectively coach them moving forward. So you need to be that person that's in a position that they want to be in. Your position needs to be attractive to them. You coming in early and doing all these things, putting in more work. If they see you doing that, they don't even want to be in your position because you're not consistent in the field, you're not growing, or whatever it comes down to, and you're not making money on a regular basis. Like that person needs to see your position and want your position every single day. And also you possess skill sets that are attractive to them, things that they want, whether it's your confidence, your communication skills, your public speaking abilities, right? Whatever it comes down to, your motivation, your drive, you possess something and skill sets that they want, that's attractive for them to be able to develop and grow. When that happens, that person wants to learn from you every single day. They see the value of spending time with you on a regular basis because they can see themselves improving and developing those skill sets throughout the process. And ultimately, they look up to you as a leader because ultimately you're doing all the things that we talked about on the first slide. You're the example of the office. You're growing, you're making money, you're a professional, you look the part every single day. You're sharp, and you're that person that people want to learn from every single day because they can see themselves in your footsteps later on down the line. But then lastly, they also believe that you are the person that can help contribute to them getting to their goals in their career path. The second that somebody does not see this and they don't see me as that person that can help them get to their goals, they're either going to look for somebody else or they're going to think that maybe those goals aren't actually achievable. And that's your fault as a leader if that ends up being the case. And the reason I put this down is those professional relations, and the reason why I say it's the most challenging thing, because I feel myself, one of my biggest strengths is building relationships. But the biggest negative I've had probably in this program is I built the wrong relationships time and time again. Whereas it was with my first crew, first 3 months, I had a crew that, like I said, that was ultimately about to hit promotion. I was about to hit my promotion, everything. And my team fell apart because when push came to shove, they loved me as a person. My team, the guys went to Penn State, Temple, we were relating on our lives in college. But when push came to shove and they ran into adversity or challenging situations in this program and or in life, I wasn't the person that they came to. They went over my head to my manager, which I don't have a problem with that. But when you don't even feel comfortable coming to me because you don't think I can resolve any issues or challenges or help you get through it, then why am I even your leader in the first place? It really was only because I was there longer. And this is not a seniority-based industry. This is performance-based, and people need to see the value of all of that. And I felt like I fixed that. And then ironically, once I put out those promotions last year and had to rebuild my office from the ground up, some of the promotions I actually put out, I built the wrong relationships. I got to the point where there was a little bit of professionalism, like they respected me because they wanted my job, they wanted my position. But when it got to the point where I was trying to coach them, I had to be harder on them. They got defensive. And, it almost like there was a rebuttal to everything. And it was because I didn't set the accountability and set the foundations from the beginning stages of that relationship. And it ended up biting me in the ass later on down the line. And it hurt some of the promotions that I put out because they weren't coachable because the professional relationship wasn't there in the beginning stages. To the level of where it needed to be. There wasn't a 50-50 balance. It was probably 60-40 or 70-30 towards the personal relationship side of things. Once that, obviously, and I look at it now, whereas, I hope, my guys are listening on the call, I hope that they respect me as a professional, but I know that they like me as a person, and they know that I'm here to be able to help them get to their goals, whatever it may be, whether it's management, whether it's making money throughout the process. They know that I will do whatever it takes. I'm the first one and last one to leave, and they know that I'll do whatever it takes to help them get to their goals and their career path and their personal lives moving forward as well. Because I made sure I made a different adjustment and approach towards the professional relationships as well. So that is one of the biggest advice of what I would give is make sure there's a 50-50 balance. If it leans one side or the other, if it's too professional, you're a boss to them, and then they don't feel comfortable opening up or sharing. And then any challenges or problems that they have, they're going to voice that to other people they're more comfortable with rather than having that equal balance between both of them as well, if that makes sense, Van.
Yeah. Well, there's two things, right? And I know we got one more slide, right?
One more
so
slide, we can do this. Yeah.
Slides, yeah. So real quick. So the things with the relationship building, right? JP talked about how he was building a relationship, but there wasn't the coaching going on. So guys liked him, but when they wanted to get better, they looked past him, right? So what we're going to talk about here with these conversations is building that relationship, understanding that respect is a big part of influence. And if you build the wrong relationship with someone where you're drinking with your people, you're dating people in the office, you're doing things where people, they still may think you're cool, but they don't respect you as a business person. You've lost people's ear. Like they're no longer going to listen to you because they don't respect you. So you have to think about, do you have your people's respect? And then you look at why people don't feel like they get better with you. It's because a lot of us, I had the same problem, JP, where I got to know my people and I fell so in love with them. I didn't want to hurt them by telling them anything they were doing wrong. So great leaders nitpick their people. Great leaders are always looking at the positives, but then they get those positives and then they put them aside. And then they're thinking about the person's negatives. And they're constantly having little conversations. And everybody's different, but you got to be thinking about your people's negatives all the time. And when you think about their negatives and you're watching them and you're observing them and you're thinking about, you know what, I noticed in that meeting, they weren't taking notes. That's a conversation I got to have with them. 100%. Yeah, I noticed in the settle ups, they were leaning against the wall instead of breaking down their people's day on the board. That's a conversation. I can't ignore that thing. I can't go, oh my God, I'm so excited. They did 5 apps today. I'm going to ignore them leaning on the wall. But a lot of us, we get sort of the word drunk. We get drunk on just having a person and we forget to nitpick that person. But when you nitpick them and you do it in a coaching way, holy crap, they're going to now see value in you and they're going to go, I need to go to this person for coaching. So anyways, let's finish up with this slide and wrap it up. But I just think it's so important to always be nitpicking little details with your people. That's how they get better. And that's how you get better as a leader.
Absolutely. I mean, all the slides we touched on, you could have a whole hour conversation about all of them. And conversations is no different. Like in the beginning stages, people have conversations like just to feel better. That's really it. It's kind of what you said. It's like you're doing it with your guys so that you can make them feel better. That's not the goal of a conversation. Your goals are to be able to help this person get better and ultimately nitpick and identify problems and provide a solution. You know, and realistically, it's playing offense rather than defense. If I can attack things head on from the beginning stages, it gets to the point where it's like, you know, I can put out the fire, you know, like right in the beginning, rather than it gets a little bit overwhelming. Like the analogy I utilize is like people put off having conversations because it's uncomfortable or whatever it is. And then you keep putting it off and you're shoving shit under a rug. And then sooner or later, you're going to trip all over it. And then it becomes a way more challenging of a conversation to have, rather than when you realize there's smoke, there's probably fire. Let me put that out right off the bat and just step on it, rather than letting it blow out of proportion. And then, you know, you got to call the fire department. And that's where it takes up an entire morning. Your conversation, it's too elongated. So, but the biggest thing is if you feel like this conversation, it's like, all right, I probably should have this conversation, but I don't really want to because it's going to be a little uncomfortable. Like then it's a conversation that needs to be had right off the bat, you know, because, and that's, again, I would always just let things fester, whether it was about, you know, somebody, you know, not taking notes in Atmo, falling asleep in Atmo, or coming in late. I'm just like, you know, it's okay. At least they're in today. At least they came into work. At least they're going to go to the field, you know, like, and you almost like justified in your own mind. So you can put off having that conversation rather than attacking it right off the bat. And not saying you need to be overly aggressive. Like, all right, Van, you were late today. Come here. Why are you late? What happened today? You know, and it gets like almost weird. It's like, you know, hey, Van, like, listen, like, and this is where holding people accountable to their goals comes into play. Like, listen, I know we talked about earlier on, like your goal is you want to get into management, you want to run and oversee a business, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to help you get there, man. But ultimately, coming in 30 minutes late, that's the second time in about 4 days I've seen that. I let it slide the first day, you know, but I've seen it again. Like, I'm going to be honest, like, it's going to be very difficult to get you in a management position and run your own office and manage a team, you know, if you can't do the tangible things right off the bat, man. Is there any reason why that's happening? Is there anything you need from me to be able to help you, you know, kind of make sure we can get you in on time every day so we can give you some more responsibility? It's like, maybe I'm not going to give them more responsibility right off the bat, but I hold them accountable to their goals, and I show them where my perspective of this person and how I view them, you know, in this industry, in this office moving forward. And now, and rather than me just attacking this person, why were you late today? And now they're like, they got the guard up, they're getting defensive. Now it's like, all right, this person knows why I'm having this conversation, and they understand that I'm trying to help and try to be solution oriented in it as well. So it's holding, every combo should be like, this is why I'm doing it, because it's helping you get to your goals. You told me you want to, you know, put your mom on payroll, which, you know, and you told me you're going to be at 10 o'clock every single day, but now you trickle in between 10:30 and 11:40, and, you know, you lose your attitude and feel sometimes. So how does that correlate to you being able to put your mom on payroll? So that's kind of the perspective of what I have. But the next side of things is going to be, you understand, you have a route going into every conversation. You're not having a combo just to, you know, kind of go through the conversation and see what kind of plays out from it. No, your goal is to be solution oriented. Just like you're not going to a presentation with a customer hoping they just sign up for the services. You're going into it because you identified a problem. There's an issue that you need to identify, educate on how there's a solution, and to see, you know, where you can basically help that person moving forward as well. It's not to just make this person feel good so that they are good to go to the field. No, sometimes these conversations have to be had, whereas the solution might be to, you know, this person needs to find something else. You know, it's 4 days in a row, they've come in late. You know, they're losing their focus in the field. They're not working hard in the field. And the conversation might need to be like, this person needs to find something else. So it's not always just to make this person feel good. The solution is not always going to be this person's going to get productive and they're good to go. They're going to get into leadership. Like there's always going to be, you know, obviously a different situation. But your goal is to find a solution to this problem that's going to help the collective unit of the team along with that person, you know, moving forward. But ultimately your goal is to change the way that somebody looks at challenges every single day. And it's not going to be through one situation. It's going to be through a continual process of ongoing conversations that you have with one specific person that's going to start to change their mentality and their mindset of how they look at, you know, and perceive adversity or, you know, challenges on a regular basis on, you know, every single day. Starts off as somebody that loses their attitude in the field. Not a problem. It happens. I lost my attitude in the field in the beginning too. You know, however, are you making the same mistakes over and over? Are we talking about, okay, you came back in the office that night and you complained about your day. All right, you know, I don't mind if you say that to me, but, you know, there's newer guys in here. I want to make sure, you know, we're talking about the positives rather than just the negatives, because I don't want that to be the focal point for, you know, a newer guy or girl. I want them to see the stuff that they positively took away from it. So attacking everything and just changing the way that people look at a, you know, a problem, you know, to the point where they're going to be solution oriented to, whereas they're a glass half full kind of person rather than glass half empty. That's my ideology when I'm having conversations with people. And the last things I would really say is just understanding the personality type of everybody in your team, because that dictates the tempo and how you're going to approach the conversation. If I'm talking to Van who played sports before, I'm going to give it to you straight. I'm like, bro, listen, you told me you want to grow. You're coming in late, man. That's like having procs at 10 o'clock. You're in at, 10:15. You already missed the warm-up laps. Like, you think you're getting playing time? No shot. I'm going to be a little more straightforward to you. However, somebody that maybe didn't have a background in sports and wasn't in the military, I'm not going to be like overly aggressive, overbearing on them right off the bat. I'm going to be a little bit more, I'm going to, kind of like not beat around the bush, but I'm going to, maybe stroke their ego a little bit, build them up and talk about the things they've done well, and then kind of build into that conversation. And it's not, it's more so just to make sure that I'm able to get through to this person a little bit more effectively. So you have to understand the people that you're on your team. And the only way you do that, kind of go back full circle from the stuff we talked about in the beginning, is when you understand their goals. You understand how they want to be coached, and you understand them as a person. So you'll be able to have effective, more authentic conversations with them that are going to lead to better results overall. So, and the last thing is just making sure that you're explaining the why behind everything. Whereas, realistically, your conversation, somebody should walk away understanding why you had that convo, what they took away from it, so that later on down the line, they could have that same exact conversation with somebody else. I don't want to be having the same convo with the person and then on their teams and everything along those lines. I want them to be able to handle these convos later on down the line. So I'm educating them throughout the entire process on why I'm doing it, the potential I see in that. When you have guys on your team, you don't want them coming in late. So it's more so like in the beginning, just playing offense rather than defense, and getting them to understand exactly why you're doing this, why you're taking time out of your day, and what it's contributing to in terms for them, for their career path and their team that they're going to build moving forward as well, man.
Yeah. And this has been an unbelievable call. And I look at, retention and team building is obviously we all are working on that at all times, but, conversations are what make us who we are. We have conversations with our parents growing up or whoever raised us to shape how we view things. We have conversations with friends that shape, where we go to college. We have conversations with people that in our life that we respect, that shape how we view things. And you never want to underestimate the power of one conversation. And the difference, I think, between people getting developed and not getting developed is there's a leader that's looking at that conversation, even if it's potentially feels like a negative conversation, as an opportunity, right? And if you look at conversations as opportunities and you don't look at them as sort of negatives, like, oh, I have to have this conversation. You should look at it and say, I want to have this conversation because something good will come out of this, even if it's uncomfortable to start. The most important thing is that we talk about it, and communication is just the life or the death of any relationship. And when you're hiring people and you have people on your team and there's communication issues, whether you just don't talk to them about their personal life or you're just not talking to them about their situation, that's where assumptions get made and thoughts go from wet cement to concrete and dry. And that's when it's impossible to fix people, when it's gone too far without adjustments. So if you just look at little things and little conversations as opportunities and get used to just talking about stuff that seems uncomfortable, you're going to get comfortable with it. And you're going to really thoroughly enjoy what you used to be afraid of. You're going to say, that's how I make my people better. And it takes time. And if you're not comfortable with it, you really got to get your people with people who are comfortable with it and watch those conversations so you can network on how to do it. But JP, got a lot of notes. Again, you're a great example of a guy who was hot and then was not, and then had to turn things around. So I know you put your number here. Anybody on the call, JP's a great guy to network with, and he does calls for people whenever you want it. So we want to make sure that you guys can do other calls outside of this. But JP, great stuff, man. Congrats. I know Bud got you last week, so we'll see if Bud gets you again this week. But we're really, really happy and excited to see you turn things around, and wishing you the best moving forward.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on this call. Seriously.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. We will talk in 2 weeks. Have a great week.
See you guys.